the northwest corner of Fian village. This is a row of old houses in disrepair. When Ling Xun appeared here, he knew that he was surrounded and had no way to retreat. In front of the intersection, 3 guards approached in a zigzag shape, each with a grim look, and their eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. At the back of the intersection, Lian Rufing was holding a long sword, ready to wait. Ling Xun has been unable to fly. However, there was no trace of tension on his face, and there was even a smile on his lips, but there was no warmth in his eyes. As early as the beginning of the battle, Ling Xun knew that there would be a fierce battle. Fortunately, now there are only 4 people left, including Lian Rufing, and the dangerous old man with the goatee did not appear. Lian Rufing laughed loudly, but his smile was fierce. "Little bastard, why didn't you run away?" Ling Xun smiled, pointed his toes abruptly, twisted his figure, and rushed towards Lian Rufing, but his back was exposed invisibly. The 3 guards at the back were startled, immediately overjoyed, and slashed with their swords. Glang! The guard with a hatchet in his hand rushed forward first. What surprised him was that Ling Xun's figure that was rushing forward suddenly stagnated, like a freeze frame, and then the arched waist ridge burst out like a spring, and spun in midair. Swish! A sword cry. The xiao saber in Ling Xun's hand rolled back at the same time, drawing a semicircle. Looking from a distance, Ling Xun's swords were one, spinning in midair like a spinning top, and the blade's edge rolled up 1,000 waves. This is the spin character formula in the 6-character swordsmanship. With a knife as the front, it rotates like a vortex, and it is the most treacherous and ruthless. Puff! The guard's arms holding the short axe were smashed by a knife, and the body that rushed forward couldn't stop, and his head slammed into the vortex formed by the blade, and his head was cut off in an instant and flew out. Blood splattered, and the scene was tragic and shocking. The 2 guards at the rear took a step away, watching this scene. They were so shocked that they suddenly avoided to one side. But Ling Xun was like a frightened rainbow flashing into the sky at this time, and he attacked with a knife. Bastard! In the shouting, Lian Rufing on the other side rushed forward, with a ferocious expression and a fierce aura, and a long sword was rushing like a blazing fire, with a potential like lightning. He never thought that Ling Xun would kill a carbine and point the finger at the 3 guards behind. For Lian Rufing, this kind of tactic of attacking the east and west is nothing, but he did not expect that it was a close-quarters fight, and Ling Xun was still so brave. "Come on, I won't give him a chance to rescue him at all." At this time, seeing Ling Xun killing the other 2 again, Lian Rufing could no longer hold back his anger and rushed over. The long, narrow, dark blade was like a poisonous snake coming out of a hole, and it rubbed a voice like a ghost crying and wolf howling in the void, cutting Ling Xun's back straight. This attack was done with tricks and tricks. If Ling Xun wanted to save his life, he had to give up the attack on the 2 guards. What Lian Rufing didn't expect was that Ling Xun didn't even notice it. He didn't dodge at all, and was just chasing a guard. Find your own death. Lian Rufing was overjoyed. How could he miss such an opportunity? The blade in his palm slashed hard on Ling Xun's back. Boom! It's just that although the knife hit, it didn't appear as the bloody picture as expected. No, this little bastard is wearing armor. Lian Rufing snorted in his heart, and his face changed suddenly. At this time, Ling Xun had already used the shocking power of his knife, and his figure suddenly accelerated like a cannon, and at the same time, the blade in his palm poured down like a cyan waterfall, and with a puff, he cut the head of a guard on the opposite side. Break. Whoa! Blood spurted out, and the guard's headless corpse collapsed. And Ling Xun's face suddenly turned pale, his throat was sweet, and he almost coughed up blood, but with a flicker of ruthlessness in his eyes, he forced himself to endure it and rushed to the last guard. The last guard was already shocked by the change in front of him, his heart was splitting, and when he saw Ling Xun rushing, he shouted and ran away regardless of the distance. This scene can't help but startling Ling Xun, and also startling Lian Rufing. He didn't seem to think that this guy would escape from the battle, He was just too spineless. "You're the only one left," Ling Xun gasped and looked at Lian Rufing. At this point in the battle, Ling Xun's consumption was enormous. If he hadn't supplemented with spirit tempering paste from time to time, he would have been unable to support it. After all, he is the third realm of true martial arts. No matter how strong and pure spiritual power in the body is, it is limited after all. And just now, he was stabbed by Lian Rufing, which caused Ling Xun to suffer a lot of internal injuries. Under these circumstances, Ling Xun could still hold on, which made Lian Rufing feel a palpitation in his heart. If it were him, it would be impossible to persist until now. However, the young man on the opposite side was still standing, blood dripping from the blade in his hand, and his murderous intent showed no signs of weakening. How could this be possible for a teenager in the third realm of true martial arts? Lian Rufing couldn't understand, but he could see that Ling Xun had obviously consumed a lot, and it was not an exaggeration to say that it was the end of the storm, which made him a little calm. "It's just me, and it's enough to kill you." Thoughts flickered in his heart. Lian Rufing was not slow, strode forward, with a fierce momentum, and the long knife in his hand smashed and killed. Compared to Ling Xun, he did not consume much physical strength from the beginning of the battle to the present, and it was when the momentum was like a rainbow. The most important thing is that his cultivation can stabilize Ling Xun's head. Swish. The long knife is splashed, and the spiritual power is like a gathering, dazzling and unparalleled. Lian Rufing had already hated Ling Xun to the core, and would not give him a chance to breathe at all. Bang bang bang. In a few breaths, the two have exchanged dozens of times. Ling Xun's face was getting paler and paler, but his sword skills were not disordered. With every move, if an antelope hangs its horns, it will reach its peak. The spiritual power in his body is indeed about to be exhausted, but the power of flesh and blood is still there. With his understanding of the A-6 character Saber Art at a micro level, he can resolve all attacks with only the Tangzai art. Fighting is the art of detour. This tangle of words is to control the enemy with skill, and use force to fight force, which is like portals of 1,000 jinns, and softness to overcome rigidity. At this time, this Tangzai is displayed in Ling Xun's hands, just like a spring silkworm spinning silk, sluggish, like spring rain, sassy like Jiang Tao. The core is to use strength to fight. Lian Rufing's face became more and more gloomy, and he felt that the other party was like a slippery loach, which made him feel like hitting a quagmire with every blow, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. What kind of knife is this? Lian Rufing has been rushing between Feian village and Qinyang tribe since his cultivation, and he has even been to Donglin city, where he has seen many powerful experts and exercises. But he couldn't find a kung fu technique that was as mysterious as Ling Xun's sword technique. However, Lian Rufing soon discovered that Ling Xun's face was getting paler and paler, his whole body was soaked in cold sweat, and it was obvious that he could no longer hold it. After killing this little thing, maybe I can take away the exercises he learned. Lian Rufing's heart moved, and he became more and more determined to kill Ling Xun. This young man has a mysterious origin. He is only a teenager, yet he possesses such terrifying fighting power. If he is allowed to live, what will he be able to do in the future? Laugh. Suddenly, a white bone spear suddenly pierced through the void, and the spear body was fluttering with dazzling clear stars. Lian Rufing's pupils shrank. Is this puff? He didn't have time to dodge at all. He only felt a sudden pain in his chest, and the next moment, his eyes darkened and he completely lost consciousness. Seeing this, Ling Xun was stunned for a moment, and then he let out a long breath, feeling an indescribable exhaustion flooding his body like a tide. He bit the tip of his tongue, and the tingling feeling made him cheer himself up, and it was not a good time to rest. Everyone was killed. A quiet and pleasant voice sounded in my ears, like a breeze. Killed all? The appearance of Wu Henshui flashed in Ling Xun's mind, and he couldn't help but be stunned. Next to him, Xiaozi raised his fair and beautiful face, looking at Ling Xun's pale face, he couldn't help frowning, and said seriously, "You should rest." Saying that, she didn't care whether she agreed or not. She grabbed Ling Xun's waist and rich clothes with one hand, picked him up, and swept away. I was taken away by this little girl again. Ling Xun smiled bitterly, feeling that he had lost face, and immediately he could no longer bear the exhaustion all over his body and fell into a deep sleep. So far, Wu Henshui, Lian Rufeng and his party of 16 people have all been executed. The scattered corpses were lying in different corners of Feian village, looking shocking under the bloody sunset. Ling Xun had a dream. In the dream, he heard a familiar cold voice, "Seekers, the next time the opening time of Tongshan Secret Realm will be 3 months later. The second level of Kinyan Avenue is called Body Refinement, and the chance to pass the level will be 108 times. If it fails in the end, the Tongshan Secret Realm will be sealed again, until there is a chance to open again after 1,000 years. 3 months. It seems that there is not much time left since the last time I passed the level." Suddenly, Ling Xun woke up from his dream and opened his eyes. Seeing the familiar house furnishings, he pondered for a long time before finally shaking his head. He didn't think about it anymore. He got up and got out of bed, feeling exhausted, and swept away, just a little weak. Xia Zip pushed open the door and entered. Seeing Ling Xun up, he didn't seem surprised. He just said, "I'm hungry." Ling Xun was stunned. He originally thought that the Xia solstice would greet him, but who would have thought that he would hear a word urging him to cook just after waking up? He shrugged helplessly. "I'm going to cook." Speaking of this, he suddenly asked, "How many days have I slept?" Xia said, 4 days. Ling Xun's eyes widened immediately. "You haven't eaten these days?" Xia nodded. Ling Xun immediately turned around and rushed into the room, starving his savior for 4 days, which made Ling Xun feel distressed. Just when Ling Xun was busy in the kitchen, Xiao Danren came in a hurry. When he saw Ling Xun's figure, he immediately said in surprise, "Ling Xun, you are finally awake." "Xiaobo, is something wrong?" Ling Xun said casually while busy with his work. Looking at Ling Xun's absent-minded appearance, Xiao Danren was instantly speechless. "Such a big thing happened 4 days ago, isn't it a problem? Your little guy has been in a coma for 4 days, isn't it a problem?"